Hello everyone, welcome back to Time Panorama. I'm Annie.
I'm June.
And I'm Louis.
In today's episode, Flavors, Identities, Modernization behind Zongzi, we're going to talk about something really delicious, different types of Zongzi. We'll introduce both savory and sweet ones. This lesson will be really useful if you want to introduce Zongzi, our Dragon Ball Festival's classical treat, to your foreign friends. But we're not just talking about the ingredients and texture of zongzi. Today, we're also going to analyze and reveal the deeper cultural significance of zongzi in Taiwan. We would love to see all of you thinking along with us about these questions. Why is zongzi so important to Taiwanese people? And what does zongzi tell us about Taiwanese culture?
So be sure to stay tuned. You definitely don't want to miss the fascinating cultural stories and analysis we have prepared for you.
Now, before we begin our discussion of four zongzi and the cultural background, let's make sure our audience has a clear picture of what a zongzi actually is, and also look back a little at its origin. Louis and Jane, I know you both are big fans of zongzi. Can you start by describing one for our listeners? How can they visualize it if they've never seen one before?
I would love to. Even though most of our local listeners know exactly what it looks like, let's close our eyes and picture it together. Even just in Taiwan, zongzi come in very different types. Generally, it contains glutinous rice and various fillings wrapped in bamboo leaves, and it is tied neatly into a distinct triangular or cone shape. I always believe that the best part of eating zongzi is the moment you unwrap it. You can smell that powerful burst of fragrance. If it's traditional savory zongzi, you immediately get hit with the warm aroma of spices and rich braised ingredients.
That's so true. When you unwrap it, the rich aroma often tells you what's inside before your eyes. Thanks for Louis' clear portrayal of zongzi. Now, Jane, could you share the origin story of zongzi with our listeners?
Sure. The story starts with a tragic hero named Xu Yuan from ancient China. He was a famous poet and caring, loyal consoler.
Unfortunately, he was spurned by his rivals.
Exactly. What that deed led to Xu Yuan's punishment by the king of the state of Chu. In despair, Xu Yuan eventually drowned himself in the river. The locals loved him so much, so they threw zongzi into the river to feed them and keep them away from his body.
Yeah, and that's why we commemorate Qiyuan during the Dragon Ball Festival by eating zongzi. Over the years, different regions and ethnic groups began to create their own versions. So today, we're going to examine the cultural significance behind two famous savory zongzi from the northern and southern parts of Taiwan, plus two sweet ones called alkaline zongzi Jianzong and crystal zongzi Bingzong.
With all these choices, it's hard to know where to even begin.
How about we begin with the savory zongzi in Taiwan, shall we?
Sure. I believe that most Taiwanese know that northern versus southern style zongzi debate has been around forever. But what actually sets them apart? Do you guys know?
Well, I know part of it comes from how they cook it. And maybe it has to do with the types of leaves they use. But honestly, I've never really thought about how those cooking methods connect to geography or culture.
You're totally on the right track. If we look closely, the leaves, ingredients, and cooking methods actually show us Taiwan's unique environment, climate, and history. Annie, what do you know about Northern Styles wrapper and where it comes from?
So, northern zongzi mostly uses brown makino bamboo leaves because the sticky rice inside is already cooked by stir frying. It doesn't stick to the leaf much. Naturally, makino bamboo grows all over the cooler, hilly areas of northern Taiwan. It was a super easy local resource for the people living there to grab, making it the perfect choice for wrapping their food.
Oh, that makes sense. For the south, they use green ma bamboo leaves, which really love humid and wet environments.
Wait. If Ma bamboo just love humid places, northern Taiwan gets a ton of rain and is super damp too. Why didn't they just grow it in the north?
Those are good questions. The problem is actually the northern winter. Sure, the summer rain in the north is great, but when a cold northeast wind blows in winter, the temperature easily drops below 10 degrees. It's simply too freezing and it can easily kill the bamboo. So it naturally grows much better in the warmer south.
Exactly, but besides the weather, the southern recipe itself also forces them to use this specific leaf. Since southern Zongzi uses completely raw rice, they have to boil it in water for hours. They really need the tough, broad, and waterproof texture of ma bamboo leaves. It survives the long boiling without breaking, and completely stops the raw rice from sticking and leaking into the water.
That's right. The environment provides the materials. Now, let's look at the cultural side, which is a huge part of this debate. We can see how these different cooking methods show us the unique lifestyles and social classes of the past. And let's start with the Northern. The Northern Zongzi uses a stir-fry then steam method, filled with heavy salty stuff like braised pork belly, dried squid, and salted egg yolks. This really reflects the partial survival needs of the working class in early northern Taiwan.
That's totally true. During the early development of northern Taiwan, there were miners in Jiufen, railway workers, and fishermen in Keelung. They really needed a small, tough, and high-calorie food that wouldn't go bad easily. Before we had modern fridges, the super high salt from those braised fillings worked as a natural preservative in Taiwan's hot and sweaty weather.
Wow, so it was basically the perfect portable fast food for the hard workers. And I guess all that salt wasn't just to keep it fresh, right? Since they were doing heavy physical labor outdoors in the hot sun, they must have been sweating a lot. Eating that salty zongzi helped them quickly get back the salt that lost so they could get their energy back and keep working.
Spot on. It was a meal made purely for intense work. This means the Thousand Jones's slow boiling method must show a totally different kind of society. Thousand Zongzi deeply represents traditional farming life, especially around the huge Jianan Plain, which is basically Taiwan's farming center. The super time-consuming water boiling process directly matches the slower and seasonal pace of farming villages.
That's a huge contrast. Unlike city workers who needed quick meals they could grab and go, farming families ran on a different schedule. They had the time, space, and teamwork to prepare raw rice and boil everything in huge pots over wood fires. This was usually done together by the whole village after a busy harvest, making the cooking itself a great way to bond with neighbors.
And their feelings really show their connection to the local land too. Instead of heavily processed stuff, southern Zongzi is filled with local farm crops. You will find the raw peanuts from Yunlin or Jiayi, local chestnuts, and fresh bamboo shoots. Boiling them for a long time softens these natural ingredients and blends them perfectly with the sticky rice. It basically wraps all the rich local harvest into one single dish.
And as Taiwan became more urbanized, our everyday lifestyles really changed, and so did our diets. We just don't need those heavy, high calorie, and super salty meals to get through the day anymore.
Yeah, and plus, now that everyone has a fridge at home, we don't have to rely on salt to preserve our food. So Zongzi kind of shifted from being a heavy survival meal to more of a fun holiday dessert.
That's so true. These trends really set the stage for the modern sweet zones we see today. So let's switch gears and talk about them. Besides the classic savory ones, there are actually a lot of creative, sweet, and even chilled zones out there now.
You mean the alkaline Zongzi that people usually dipped it with white sugar and serve chilled?
Yes, as well as the crystal zones. Although both alkaline zones and crystal zones are served chill and have chewy taste. The making process has huge differences. The chewy and bouncy texture of alkaline zones comes from soaking the glutinous water in fluid water. The alkaline solution breaks down the starch grains. This chemical reaction turns the rice grains yellow and translucent.
Moreover, in Taiwanese Hokkien, we also call alkaline "yi-zang". The sound "gi" is similar to the sound minus in Taiwanese Hokkien. Therefore, some people will avoid giving alkaline zongzi to others because they think giving it may bring bad luck.
Exactly, and compared to the alkaline zones, the crystal zones actually appear in recent years. The recipe for crystal zones combine the concept of Southeast Asia, resulting the zones into chewy texture and jelly-like wrapping. And crystal zones is actually made with tapioca or sago pearls, which results in a bouncy and a chewy texture.
I have heard of Crystal Zongzi because the gifted box sold in Starbucks is so famous. Every summer, Starbucks in Taiwan will promote the Zongzi gifted box called Summer Sweets and invent different flavors every year.
Yeah, I also know about Starbucks summer sweets. Besides this gift box, there are other stores that have similar products. For example, the bubble tea flavor Crystal Jones, which combine the local popular drink and Crystal Jones into a unique product.
We'll be surprised by those sweet merchants' ideas that they make the localized flavor crystal zongzi.
For sure, I was amazed by their innovation and creativity. They found a way that made a drink into an edible cuisine, which is a way of modernization and adaptation of the crystal zones. And turning bubble tea into crystal zones becomes a promotional commercial to the local. They will attract more people to buy the product and give it a try.
To be more concise, after the Industrial Revolution, people have more easy access to the ingredients, and zongzi are no longer limited to one area or certain foods. Some savory zongzi are even sold in a pack and displayed in the supermarket, which shows classical food is more widely spread.
That's right. Although most of the time local people are still used to going to traditional markets to buy the handmade zongzi, people also go to modern stores to grab a pack of zongzi. This situation also demonstrates the modernization of the zongzi and shows the transition of the modern food supply chain. Under the effect of the modernization, classical foods shift from a Dragon Ball festival symbolization into a food that represented the spirit of the traditional festival carried with the memory and culture.
Wow, we all did an amazing job breaking down those details and showing how zongzi connects to Taiwanese culture and development. Those analyses actually raise a question in my mind about the reason behind our food choices, specifically the savory ones. Honestly, have you ever thought about why people get so defensive about their favorite type of zongzi? I mean, it's just food, but people in Taiwan actually start their culinary debate online every year about northern versus southern style. What do you guys think? Why do people become so emotionally attached to zongzi and even try to protect the rights of the specific style?
Well, yeah, it's actually really interesting to see people take it so personally and even start to different their preference. But looking back, I might understand why. Growing up in the North, my family always made and ate Northern style zongzi. Southern style zongzi just wasn't a part of our meals. I'm sure you guys can relate since we're all from the northern part of Taiwan.
You're right. It's exactly the same in my family.
Yeah, I get that too.
And it wasn't because we hated or tried to against them. It's just that flavors and textures are completely unfamiliar to us. I think it is really about what feels familiar and comforting. But actually, it makes me wonder, do our preferences just simply follow the geography of where we live right now? Or is it something deeper relating to our family background?
I think it's definitely family.
Yeah, right. That actually reminds me of a fun memory. As you know, I'm not a huge fan of Zongzi, but during one Dragon festival, I spent my holiday traveling with my friends. The trip was amazing, but on the day of the festival, all I could think about was, I wonder what they're eating at Grandma's house right now. It made me miss home so much.
That's exactly what I mean. Zongzi makes us emotionally attached to our family. You actually didn't miss the food. You missed the feeling of the being home. There's actually research discussing this. Holiday foods are deeply tied to our family rituals and sense of belonging. And that's the thing most of us never think about. Our personal preferences actually reflect how our families moved and migrated in the past.
Wait, what do you mean by how our families moved?
Think about Taiwan's history. In the past few decades, many families moved around southern Taiwan to the northern for the work. So, a lot of people are born and raised in the north, but their families only eat southern zones.
Oh, right. That's actually true. My neighbors are exactly like that. They've lived in the north throughout their whole lives, but their family table only serves thousand zongzi because of their grandparents. So, even though the three of us share a similar memory of eating northern zongzi, it's not merely because we all live in the north today, but because our family or even ancestors share a similar regional background.
Exactly. Geography is just where your body physically is in the present, but family background represents your roots. Food traditions travel with people. When families migrated across Taiwan, they carried their hometown flavors and memories with them. So, when you choose or try to defend a certain style of zongzi today, it's not just about your personal preference. It's actually a reflection of your family's history and where your roots came from.
Yes, we attach our love for our family to that one specific eating style. It constructs a huge part of our identity.
That's right.
After today's discussion, we've learned that zongzi is much more than sticky rice wrapped in bamboo leaves.
Yeah, it's amazing how a single triangular package can hold so much history, emotion, and cultural debate. It truly reflects regional identities, family traditions, migration histories, and even changing consumer tastes.
Right. From the debates over traditional northern and southern zongzi to sweet alkaline zongzi and modern crystal zongzi. Every version tells us stories about Taiwan and its people.
It really does, and that brings us perfectly to the core of what we've been exploring today. Our food choices are not just a matter of culinary preference, they reflect and define our identity.
Indeed, it's a lens through which we can see how Taiwan has modernized, how families have migrated, and how our deep rooted traditions continue to adapt to the present day. Every bite connects us to our ancestors, our childhood memories, and our sense of home.
So, the next time you enjoy a zones during Dragon Ball Festival, Remember that you aren't just eating a classic treat, you're tasting the living stories of culture, history, and identity. And for our listeners, we hope this episode inspires you to share both the flavors and the stories behind them with your friends.
And with that, we've come to the end of today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed today's lesson, and we're all looking forward to having you in Taiwan Panorama next time. I'm Annie.
I'm Louis.
And I'm Jean. Have a great day. See you.